Antichrist, the greatest case of mistaken identity the world has ever seen.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today. We are the Christadelphian Church, a voluntary lay community of Bible-believing students found all over the world. We have no paid ministry, and therefore we do not adhere to an ecclesiastical hierarchy. What we mean by this is that the members of our church are not forced to believe in traditional man-made theology, but all of our members have an ongoing interest in reading the Bible for ourselves, wishing to simply share the gospel message freely and without obligation to everyone who is willing to listen. All of our members are equal, having no special status over another, and are encouraged to participate in the various functions of our community. We go to school, have jobs, tend to our families, living and working amidst societies all over the world. We are conscientious objectors to war. We do not bear arms or are involved politically on any level. We desire to live peacefully and respectfully as contributing members of society, anticipating the return of the Lord Jesus Christ from heaven to establish God's divine kingdom of peace and righteousness upon this earth. Today we have a thought-provoking program in store for you as we delve into Bible prophecy. We welcome to our studio our friend and brother in Christ, Mr. Chris Sales, who will be talking to us about a very interesting subject, the Antichrist. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Peter. Good to be here.
Chris, we find that there's a lot of popular discussion regarding the Antichrist, more so maybe than it's been for the last number of years. We see the subject discussed in books, in film. We even see in our local Christian bookstores an entire wall of these books and film.
Yeah.
Why is it that the topic of the Antichrist has become so much popular again?
Well, I think, Peter, there's always been a fascination about the last days, the end of times. And, I think a lot of people today can see that, our world is heading for a disaster, with diseases like AIDS and bird flu, with the threat of nuclear war always looming on the horizon. The concept of a future worldwide dictator kind of fits right in.
Do you think the attention given to this matter is justified?
Well, I certainly do. There are many good reasons to investigate these matters. In fact, the Bible predicts that God will soon intervene in the affairs of this world. It predicts that there will be a final battle between the Lord Jesus Christ and this Antichrist system, if you will, the ultimate good versus evil battle.
All right, so what is the problem then? It would seem that all this apparent media attention and popular best-selling books and movies, wouldn't that appear to be a good thing?
Well, the problem is that most Christians today don't understand the biblical concept of Antichrist, and that's what we'd like to look at today. I think a lot of these fictional novels have probably done more harm than good. We want to know what the Bible says about these things, and really a lot of the authors of these novels and the producers of the movies have missed some very clear passages on this topic.
Well, that's quite surprising. What passages would those be? The term Antichrist must appear many times in the Scriptures based on the coverage that it does get in the media.
Well, it might surprise you, Peter, and probably many of the viewers, that the term Antichrist appears only 5 times in all of Scripture.
That, again, is certainly surprising. I would assume that these passages would all appear in the book of Revelation.
Well, many people might think that, Peter, but actually the term Antichrist only appears in the tiny Epistles of John.
Really? Chris, can we have a look at those?
Well, sure. Actually, I think we can get them up on the screen here. We've got a passage, the 4 passages where the term occurs, actually 5 times, but all in only 4 passages. This is the only places where Antichrist appears in the Bible. It might be helpful, Peter, if we just read through them. 1 John 2, verse 18, and we'll look at these maybe a little bit more detail later, says, "Little children, it is the last time. And as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time." And later on, in verse 22, it says, "Who is a liar But he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ, he is an Antichrist that denieth the Father and the Son. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 3, and every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. This is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world. And the last passage in the second epistle of John, the first chapter, verse 7, for many deceivers are entered into the world, who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an Antichrist.
Chris, I would admit that these passages certainly are perplexing, and even today, many years after they've first been written, are still somewhat of a mystery to a lot of us nowadays.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, Peter, because certainly people that are familiar with the popular notion of Antichrist might read those passages and think, wow, that's really not what I'm used to hearing about it. But you know, each one of those passages give us a lot of information. We might, for example, be able to take a look at that first passage in a little more detail. So if we could put up that slide about what the Bible says about Antichrist, we'll just maybe look at it in a little more detail. It's 1 John 2, verse 18. And it reads, little children, it is the last time. And as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know it is the last time. Now just off the top there, Peter, notice that John says, as ye have heard. This was a popular topic of discussion even back then in the first century. They perhaps sat around and discussed the implications of what it was all about. So they had heard about it. Verse 19, we don't have it up there, but it goes on to say, they went out from us. So the Antichrist group, movement, went out from amongst the true church. But there's 2 points I want the viewers to take special note of, and we've got them at the bottom of the slide there. That based on Scripture, Antichrist is not just future, but existed in the first century, because John says, even now there are many Antichrists. And notice he uses the plural. So Antichrist can't just be a single individual, because it's a plural in its usage there in verse 18.
So you're saying that there are many Antichrists, first of all, if I get you correctly, and that they're already here today, which is something that a lot of people find very hard to believe compared to the popular notions of today.
Well, Peter, it's not what I'm saying. It's what the Bible's saying. And the Bible clearly says in this passage that there have been many Antichrists. There is an Antichrist here today, as there was in John's day, and there will be an Antichrist to come in the future. You know, this, to me, is the important point that most Christians are missing. And that is that Antichrist is not just a single individual, and it's not just something in the future.
Well, if what you're saying by this is that the Antichrist, you know, has already been here in the past and is in the world already, wouldn't we already know about it? It must be rather obvious, wouldn't it?
Well, I believe it is, for those that are looking in the right place. Take, for example, Jesus himself says in Matthew 24 and verse 5, he says, many would come in my name saying, I am Christ, and would deceive people. In fact, another gospel account says that he would deceive, if possible, the very elect. Now notice what he's saying. Many will come and say, I am Christ. That's describing a dynasty, if you will. It's describing a succession of individuals, each claiming to be Christ, and doing so very publicly.
Well, claiming to be Christ, I find that, again, very surprising. It's not a claim that I've heard before, myself, in my own personal experience, except for occasionally a cult leader that later on, after the fact, the whole world has made it quite evident by the sad state of how he's left his congregation, sometimes with even mass suicide. You don't really hear about that he fooled many people. And anyways, I always seem to have been given the notion that Antichrist was a political figurehead.
The popular notion that's out there in your Christian bookstore would give you that impression that it's some sort of United Nations leader, that it's a political base. But again, Peter, the Scripture is clear that it's primarily religious. Of course, there's a political application to that. Maybe we should just look at another one of those Antichrist passages. Let's go to the one there on 1 John chapter 4. Now, last time we were looking at 1 John chapter 4, we looked at verse 3, but let's go back and have a look at verse 1. It says, Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Now, again, it's John writing to the believers of his day, calling them beloved, and he's saying to them, look, put the matters to the test. He says, test the spirits or try the spirits. He's saying, look, don't just believe everything you hear. Put things to the test and try them, because there are many false prophets. He goes on to say, and he gives them a way that they could know. He says, hereby know ye the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesseth that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ in the flesh is come in the flesh is not of God. This is the spirit of Antichrist. And he goes on to say, look, you've already heard that it's going to come and it's now in the world. So again, the two main points, many individuals, not just one, and it's existed since the days of John. Now if we could just go on to the next slide, we'll go into it in a little bit more detail. Because John gives us a test question, if you will, a question that you could ask to find out who Antichrist is. He says, every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. Now it's that word flesh, Peter, that's significant as we've got on the slide. It means human nature in this context. So Antichrist is a religious system that teaches, that they have teachings which deny that Jesus had human nature, that he could be tempted like you and like me and any other human being. And remember, Antichrist is a false system, if you will. They left the true church and established another one.
Okay, as you're leading us along here, it certainly sounds like it is indeed a theological debate.
Well, I mean, think about it, Peter. We're talking about Antichrist. I mean, the very term has a religious connotation. When people oppose the clear Bible teaching about Jesus, who he was, and what he taught, they're speaking against him. They're anti-Christ. This is a religious matter, first and foremost.
So what you're saying is that the popular concept of Antichrist, believed by millions, not just of people in the world, but by millions of Christians, is wrong?
Well, Peter, what we've done is looked at what the Bible tells us about Antichrist. We've looked at all the passages where it occurs. So let's just compare this so-called popular notion with what we've read in the Bible. All right, so I'll ask you some questions. Does today's popular concept of Antichrist link Antichrist to the first century?
No.
Does this popular concept allow for there to be many Antichrists?
Not in all the popular teachings that I've heard.
All right, and the final test. Does the popular notion of Antichrist have anything to do about Jesus' nature and whether he came in the flesh or not?
As far as I've seen in my own observations, put more of a stress on the Antichrist and have completely, in many ways, ignored Jesus Christ himself.
So if it doesn't measure up with these biblical teachings, then the popular notion is faulty, regardless of how many people think it might be accurate.
So I ask again, why is it popular?
Well, that's a good question. Why do things become popular? I guess when millions of people are exposed to these ideas throughout the media, in movies and novels and books, and even from their own pulpit, and aren't willing to compare these things to what the Bible says, I guess that's how things become popular, but it doesn't make them right.
Okay, I can appreciate a lot of misunderstanding about the concept of the Antichrist, but this whole case of mistaken identity, I just can't fully fathom that.
Okay, fair enough. We've